Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and thank you very much for you to stay tuned at on Radio IKIM Inspirasi Inforia Islami, and welcome back to Great Works of the Muslim World. And as usual, we are having Dr. Muhammad Husni Muhammad Amin, fellow at IKIM Center for Science and Environment Studies, or also called as KIAS at IKIM. And for that, we welcome him. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Doctor.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and it's good to be welcome back.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much for being with us today, Doctor.
My pleasure.
And as for today, we are going to discuss about Uyun al-Anba fi Tabaqat al-Atibba,
Atibba.
Ibni Atibba, Ibni Abi Usaybah's history of medicine and physician. And Uyun al-Anba fi Tabaqat al-Atibba is well-known book on the history of medicine and physicians from ancient times until the time of its author, Ibnu Abi Usaybah, who lived in 13th century. So maybe, Doctor, perhaps what you can tell us more about Ibnu Abi Usaybah.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Uh, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Thank you, Jahmaslina, for inviting me again to become host in this program. So to start off, actually the pronunciation of the name is Ibn Abi Usaybi with the Ain.
Usaybah.
And his full name was Ibn Abi Usaybi Mu'affaquddin Abul Abbas Ahmad ibn Qasim ibn Khalifah al-Khazraji. So from there, we know that he's descended from Bani Khazraj, from the early history of Islam when the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he migrated from Mecca to Yathrib, which he later named as Medina. So he was helped and he was largely assisted by the Ansar there, and this consisted of the Aus and Khazraj. So now we know that in Abi Usaybi'ah was at least descended from Bani Khazraj, and he was born in the 13th century. He was born in the year 1203, and he lived for some 67 years. He died in 1270, and he's commonly known as Ibn Abi Sabi'ah. Well, of course, he was an Arab. He was a physician, and he came from Syria. So we know that as Islam spread throughout the Arabian Peninsula, and then with the time of Sayyidina Omar and Sayyidina Abu Bakr, they were the Muslim reach has expanded, and then by the time of Sayyidina Omar, they were receiving call from Syrians to come and liberate the land from the Roman Byzantine. So you would imagine that some of these soldiers, when they followed the expeditionary forces, and then when they liberated those cities, some of them might decide to settle down in the liberated lands. So that probably explains why his family, he came from Syria, from that part of the world. And he was born in Damascus, in Dimashq, or Damashq as we know it today. And he was the son of a physician, and he went on to study medicine both in Dimashq, and later on he went to Qahira, to study medicine. And when he was 33 years old, he was appointed as a physician in a new mustashfa, or it depends really. If you came from the Arab line, it's called mustashfa. But if you come from the Persianate Mawali, since last time we mentioned about this, how Persians during the time of the early, during the time of the Umayyads, they came into Islam in throngs, and they became Muslim. So some of this they become known as Mawali, and they call Bimaristan, we call hospital Bimaristans. I mean, garden for the sick and the
Mm-hmm.
unwell. But Mustashfa is the place where you get shifa, you get healing.
Yeah.
So, uh, but 1 year after he got that position in the new hospital in Cairo, he got an offer from a ruler uh, the ruler of the Damascus, to for a medical post as a physician in Salkhat near Damascus. So this is a balik kampung story. He went so far to Cairo. Now
Mm-hmm.
he's back to Salkhat, nearby his hometown, or his town of birth,
Mm-hmm.
and there he lived until his death. So not all people, they like to settle in faraway lands.
Yeah.
Some of us, they are like us. They are people. They are human beings. They
Yeah.
really like to be close to where they
Family,
were born.
hometown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
And then he wrote many books, but because being that's the risk associated with being born in the 13th century, not many
Mm.
of these works survive, because it depends really how your bureaucratic culture, or your library culture, how you cultivate this sort of
Mm-hmm.
record keeping
Yeah.
culture. It depends very much on that, so that your works can survive. And not many works have survived, especially if we follow the story where, with the Mongol attack on Baghdad in 1258, many of these books were destroyed.
Destroyed.
So with regards to Ibn Abi Usaybi, his only surviving work is this work we call Uyun al-Anba fi Tabaqat al-Atibba. And what it means is, Uyun al-Anba is the most excellent story, or excellent classification fi Tabaqat Atibba. I believe in the previous episodes we talked about the word Tabaqat, meaning it means a biography, and the Islamic tradition has this thing about writing the biographies of famous people, for
Mm-hmm.
either prosperity, for posterity, for learning of
Mm-hmm.
lessons. And in the Quran, as I said last time, there are many of these. The Quran preserve stories of people from whom we can either derive lessons from, or we make it as something, a lesson to be learned uh, from. And so um, so with regard of his descendant, his lineage, he was descended from Sa'ad ibn Ubadah al-Khazraji, and this is a famous Sahaba, a companion
Mm-hmm.
of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And his name Abi Usaybi, and after that there's name Muwafaquddin. Uh, this the translation that I got from Oxford World Classics, which I have here, and this is a good, the recent translation. It translated this work as Anecdotes and Antidotes, a medieval Arabic history of physicians. And the
Mm-hmm.
translator rightly says that, well, Ibn Abi Usaybi didn't use the word medieval, because they don't know, they don't subscribe to that periodization. But Muwafaquddin means given success in religion. So we can say that, he led very, a successful career. And we know that from this work, we know that uh, he's he's uh, he's completed his career and retired well until he died in nearby his hometown in 1270. And this work is a testimony to his successful life. And but unfortunately, uh, from his own book Uyun al-Anba, Ibn Abi Usaybi, he did not include an entry on himself. He has hundreds of people whose lives he recorded in this book, but he didn't say anything about himself. So we have to refer to other biographers, and also entries on what he wrote on his relatives and teachers. So from these entries, we know that Ibn Abi Usaybi, he was born into a family of physicians. As I said before, his father was a physician, and many in his families were physicians, and that is the meaning of the word Atibba. It is a plural of the word tabib, from the word tib. Tib, if you remember, tib al-Nabawi,
Yeah.
that's of either an-Nawawi or Suyuti, or even Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyah.
Mm-hmm.
So tib an-Nabawi meaning prophetic medicine. So tib meaning medicine, or
Medicine.
anything that has got to do with the art of curing people and treating
Mm-hmm.
people. So tabib means someone who treats people, and atibba
Like a
is
doctor.
yes, exactly, physicians during that
Yeah.
time. So but the term doctor for us is fairly in history, is a recent
Yeah.
term, Hajjah
Yeah.
Faslina. It started
Yeah.
with in during the Enlightenment age, because doctor came from this word docere in Latin.
Mm-hmm.
It means to teach, because you
Wow.
need to undergo in a certain
Yes,
amount
correct.
of training
Yeah.
and learning, and then you have to go into viva to be tested by other
It's a long
physicians.
process.
It's a long process, and it's not
Yeah.
much different than what we experience
Yeah.
today. So when you qualify as a physician, when you qualify as a doctor, you get something which they call as licentia docetia,
Wow.
meaning license to teach. Meaning you as a doctor now you can do docere, you can teach others, and rightly
Mm-hmm.
so. If you take up medicine, and then you be tested, and then you be examined by your fellow, uh, senior doctors, before you are allowed to treat other people, and before you are given a license to teach, which explains,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's today we have medical doctor, and you have
Yeah.
philosophy
Philosophy.
doctor,
Yeah.
doctor or PhD. So
Yeah.
so they belong to the same. They used to belong to the same tradition.
Mm-hmm.
Only after you have undergone certain number of years of training and learning under teachers, under masters, under magister, they call it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Only then you are, after having passed your examination, only then you'll be allowed to teach and to treat others. So that is a little bit about uh, the title of the book alone that we can learn. So it's commonly translated into English as History of Physicians, Lives of Physicians, Classes of Physicians, and or even biographical encyclopedia of physicians. So that's a little bit about the life of Abi Usaybi.
Mm-hmm. It's quite interesting. And we want to talk about the book Uyun al-Anba fi Tabaqat al-Atibba. It
Al-Atibba, yes.
Atibba.
Yes,
It's quite
yes.
hard for me. This book is quite well known. So
Yeah.
perhaps you can explain what is this book about.
All right. So so this book, Uyun al-Anba, which Ibn Abi Usaybi compiled, uh, he compiled this work as a biographical encyclopedia of notable physicians. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like the encyclopedia that we read today. It
Yeah.
is biographical encyclopedia. It's an encyclopedia. It's voluminous actually,
Mm-hmm.
and they managed to reduce it to a single. In the translation, they managed to reduce it to a single volume, and which is fortunate for us because now we get to enjoy this work, and
Mm-hmm.
but it contains biography of notable physicians, people who are famous, who happen to be physicians, doctors, Atibba, eh, from uh, from Greece, from Rome, and from Indians, from the ancient time until up to the year 1252, in the Islamic era of 650 Hijrah. So in the Gregorian calendar is 1252. So he compiled it up to his lifetime, but I guess he didn't. There's something about published work that you have to stop it somewhere somehow, and not go beyond that,
Mm-hmm.
because of the limited lifetime that one has. But
Yeah.
the title, well, the book contains summary of physicians from ancient Greece, from Syria,
Yeah.
even because Syria, we know that he was from Syria, from Damascus, from Dimashq, so he would have been acquainted with. I mean, if you see the earlier tradition, you know, before Ibn Abi Usaybi was Abu Bakr Muhammad al-Razi,
Yeah.
who lived in the 10th century, in 900 something, in the early part of after 100 years after, into the Abbasid age, and Abu Bakr Muhammad al-Razi wrote another, voluminous, multi-volume work called Al-Hawi,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about 30. Uh, well, it can fit into the folios, the amount of folios that they keep. It can fit into 30 volumes, but it's rather unfortunate for us this hasn't been done, and partly because medicine itself is a growing discipline, and some of those things which are contained in Al-Hawi may no longer apply to us today because of the growth of medical knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But and to translate to, I mean, not just to translate that 30 volume of books, you need
Yeah.
to edit it, and then you need to translate it,
Mm-hmm.
and that work alone can, you know uh, can fill up an entire lifetime. Imagine,
Yes.
who in this world
Yes. Correct.
would consent to that, who in this world have the heart to do that, consume their entire career
Entire life.
just doing that, and in the end there's no guarantee that this work uh, can serve the modern medical knowledge that we have,
Yeah.
although we might learn, a thing or two, or a lot of things that we can learn from this work. So this Uyun al-Anba, it opens up with a summary of physicians in ancient Greece, from Syria, in India, and Rome. But in the original Arabic book, which is about 700 pages long,
Wow.
uh, he is focused on the physicians of Islam, from the early part of Islam up until Ibn Abi Usaybi'ah owns lifetime, and uh, and then uh, and then he enlarged, well, in the history of this book there was enlarged, and there are also extant manuscripts. So if in the Arabic version of this book is about 700 pages, and what I have in my hand is about 300 pages. They managed to reduce a lot of. I mean, the translator himself, he
Yeah.
admitted that he removed a lot of materials in order to fit it into a 300 pager of a book. uh, but at least we know now that in other versions of this work, in extant manuscripts, there are more that we can see. So according to scholars who have studied this work, it has been published 5 times in all. The first by August Mueller.
Mm-hmm.
They was published in 1882, but it has many typos and errors inside it. But Nizar Ridha, he published another work in 1965, but it is an uncritical version. And then Qasim Wahab uh, produced another one in 1997, and a critical version of this book was produced in Cairo in 1996. And what I'm talking about, Mahajam Maslina,
Yes, sir.
was these are actually the Arabic versions of it,
Mm-hmm.
and this particular edition was uh, was a critical edition. It was published in sorry in
2000 something.
um yeah it doesn't have a date here, but suffice to say, yeah, of course. How silly I am. It's written over here. It's published in 2020. Sorry.
20,
So
oh, very, very recent.
come again.
2020, recently,
It's very
2020.
recently.
Yeah.
Yes, I think during the COVID time.
Oh, yeah, correct.
All right.
20.
So regarding the book, as I said before, is a historical classification. He doesn't write in a manner that his predecessors write. They focus on like Abu Bakr al-Razi. He was focused on writing. I mean,
Medic.
before him was Hunayn Ishaq. He translated into Arabic the works of Galen.
Mm-hmm.
Those are Greek physicians, and to have a sense of it, Jamal Sayyidina,
Yes.
we have to understand that the Arabic world is so close to Greece. It's only separated by the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Imam Ghazali says that. It explains a lot why Imam Ghazali says that the Muslims they were influenced by the Greek philosophers, because
Mm-hmm.
they were just separated by the Mediterranean, and it's easy to see how from Greece the ship can come down just across the Mediterranean Sea to Alexandria in Egypt,
Egypt.
and from there they can travel down. In fact, in Richard Turner's book, The Passion of the Western Mind, he says that one of the teachers of Socrates,
Mm-hmm.
they came down to Egypt to study with the ancient Egyptians, and then from there they come back again to their home in Greece, and that makes Greek philosophy. That's why Imam Ghazali says that these people, these philosophers, they learn the wisdom from the earlier prophets,
Mm-hmm.
because in Egypt, that's where many, is the Israelite prophets who sent there. Nabi Musa alayhi salam was sent to the
Yeah.
Bani
To
Israel,
the
and then
Israel.
yes, they spread in Egypt, and Christianity also after Jesus or Nabi Isa alayhi salam. Just before Islam, Egypt has been a large part of Egypt. Christianity has already spread. So
Mm-hmm.
back to Ibn Abi Usaybi. Why did he write a lot about this physicians from pre-Islamic times is because he's
Yeah.
so familiar. It's so familiar. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, the ongoing debate whether there is such a thing as an Islamic medicine or
Mm-hmm.
is it just medicine, but the Muslims also learn about it, whether it's just tib or is just or is there such a thing as a tib nabawi. So we have to understand that it, the in this introduction it says that during the time of the prophet, there was a time before the prophet was sent, was the time of the jahiliyyah, the ignorance,
Yeah.
and many of the knowledge have been lost.
Yeah.
But the people who systematize, they try to systematize knowledge, make it into proper science, with the Greeks. And that's why we get this thing called epistemology, which
Epistemic.
is the science of to study how you know the things that you know. It comes
Mm-hmm.
from the word episteme, meaning
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. From there, we know that the Greeks have tried to classify knowledge, make it into a science, and not only knowledge, but also for other fields of knowledge, medicine, even technology. So back to Ibn Abi Usaybi, uh, in the classification of physicians in this work, yeah, he talked about the origin and first appearance of the art of medicine, how
Mm-hmm.
medicine first
Started.
appeared.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went on to talk about physicians who received the rudiments of the art of medicine and initiated the practice of that art. And art here, I think it means sina'ah and not ilm, because there's the difference between science and technology. Many of the
Yeah.
things today
Mm-hmm.
are what they say to be science. Well, insofar as science refers to the study of nature, biology,
Yeah.
physics, chemistry, they can be called science because they
Science.
tell us something about the natural world.
Mm-hmm.
But many of the things today are not actually science, but they are actually technology,
Mm-hmm.
or put it as technological science,
Yes.
because they only study things which human hands have made them.
Mm-hmm.
For example, computer science,
Yes.
artificial intelligence, because these things are not naturally occurring
Yeah, correct.
in the world, but rather they came because
Create.
people they have been
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
by human hands. So he's why is he using this rudiments of the art of medicine, because medicine is not something that is naturally occurring.
Yes.
In the beginning, people experimented. You can imagine, you know in history, some people, they have experimented, they got sick, they observe the animals also get some of the
Tested.
animals get sick, some of the animals get fever,
Mm-hmm.
or then these animals, they instinctively know which leaves cures. Sometimes we see if we have cats, sometimes
Yes.
normally cat eat cat food, or fish,
Yeah.
or meat, but sometimes we do see cats, they consume certain herbs,
Grass.
because they know which herbs
Yeah.
cure what kind of illnesses. So in the
Mm.
beginning, in the ancient time, that must have been the case also. So this is an art because it involves something that got to do with human hands. You have to experiment it. You have to take it. You have to grind it. You have to taste it. You have to try. And some people, they get cured, and then so experiment can be is a success, and people get well again. Some people, they get even sicker or they die. So from that, you collect the data. Okay, these herbs cause death. These herbs cause people to get well. So that is a rudimentary form of science. Science is where you collect the data and then you see the pattern and then you repeat again and you form hypothesis and you repeat again if you with another set of data. And the most important thing in science is repeatability.
Yeah.
If you cannot repeat it, then
Mhm.
it's not science. Then it's just what you call folklore
Expert.
ataupun petua-petua kan. So and then in Abi Usaybi he went on to talk about the classification of the Greek physicians, and then he talked about the early Greek physicians, and then this is the name that I have mentioned before, Galen, and all. Uh, Abu Bakr al-Razi, he wrote Shukuk ala Jalinus, doubts on Galen. So he studied Galen medicine, and he found some of the things are not what does not conform to what Galen said to be the result. So he wrote, there's some doubt. So he tested it again and again. So that the science is growing and the science is being developed there. And then Ibn Abi Usaybi went into talking about Hippocrates, who is a Greek physician, and he lived in around 375 BC, before Christ, meaning
Mhm.
375 before Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
For us, before Nabi Isa, alayhi
Mhm.
salam. And then he went on to talk about Galen, the Alexandrian physicians. Remember early on, I said that the Greek world and the
Yeah.
Muslim world were only separated by the Mediterranean. So
Mhm.
there were many physicians who lived in Alexandria, in what we know to be Egypt today. And then about the Christian physicians. And then you went to talk about the Arab and other physicians of the earliest Islamic period. Syriac physicians of the early Abbasid period. I remember, talking to, when I was doing my PhD, I was talking to my supervisor, Professor Zaini Uthman. He said that, the Syrians, they are not Romans and they are not Arabs even, although they speak Arabic,
Yeah, yeah.
but they are actually Syrians. They are originally from there, so they are Syrians. So sometimes the Syrians, when they migrate, for example, if they migrate to America,
Mhm.
they will be known as American Syrians and not American Arabs.
Yeah.
And they, because they speak Arabic, they are only known as Arabs because they speak and wrote
Speaker.
Arabic. So anyone who speaks Arabic extensively, fluently, and can read and write in Arabic, he will be an Arab. He will be what they call as musta'arib, or uh, a convert to Arabs. So and then he talked about, and then moving on, he talked about physicians in the early Abbasid periods, physicians who translated works on medicine and other subjects from Greek into Arabic, and their patrons. Remember the name that I said, Hunain in Ishaq? He
Yeah.
was a Christian Arab, and he spoke Arabic and also Greek, and he was employed by Banu Musa in the 850 till they died in 873. This was during the time of the translation movement under Khalifah al-Ma'mun. So this person, this translator, Hunayn ibn Ishaq, he translated a lot of these Greek works into Arabic, and they studied it. And after 400 years till the time of Ibn Abi Usaybi, still being talked about and still being discussed. So, and then he moved on to talk about Iraqi physicians and physicians from Al Jazeera and Diyarbakir, and then physicians in the land of the Persians, people like Al-Kindi, and then Thabit ibn Qurrah, another contemporary of Hunayn ibn Ishaq, who was among those who was among those who employed by Banu Musa, Thabit ibn Sinan, and then a lot more, and then also I think Kamaluddin Yunus, and then about the physicians in the land of the Persians. That he talked about Abu Bakr al-Razi, who lived in 925, and al-Razi, well, he's a Persian Farsi, because Abu Bakr al-Razi was born and raised in Rai in Iran
Oh.
today.
Mm.
And so remember what I said earlier on about during the time of towards the end of the time of the Umayyad, before the Abbasid revolution. That was the time when the Persians and other races,
Yeah.
they became Muslims in the mass. And then he talks about physicians in India, and physicians who were prominent in Western lands and settled there, famous physicians in Egypt, and lastly, famous Syrian physicians. So that's what I can talk so far about the content of this book. It doesn't talk about medicine per se, but it's
Mm-hmm.
biography and how these physicians, they are, well, he puts in some anecdotes inside there to talk about their personal lives and how they practice medicine, and then some of the cures, a little bit information about medicine, and also in general. And then that's how we know all these details about Abu Bakr al-Razi. At his older age, he lost his vision, because some say that he ate a lot of beans, a lot of they call it red beans. But it's also because apart from being a doctor, he was also a chemist. He worked with chemicals, and some
Mm-hmm.
of these fumes, they get into the eyes, and and then it somehow deteriorate his vision. So that's about as much as I can talk about the content of this book, Jamasina.
Yeah, very interesting. And when you mention about in the book also they explain how the physician treat and also about the medicine a little bit. Maybe
Yeah,
perhaps it's quite it's still similar with the practice and with the doctors nowadays, right?
yeah,
Only the
yeah.
different thing is maybe the technology, correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because many of the tools that we use today were later inventions. I think one other physician, I think there's Abul Qasim al-Zahrawi,
Mm-hmm.
known in the West as Abul Qasis. He was the one who invented, a lot of about 100 surgical tools,
Mm.
and
Wow.
many of the modern surgical
Yeah.
tools still resemble the tools that he created. I mean, they didn't evolve so much,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but that is a later, very much later invention. Um, yeah, that's about
Mm.
it.
Yeah, and we are heading to the end now. Maybe
Yeah.
you can give some conclusion for this topic today.
Yeah. So the conclusion that I want to give is that although this work is largely a historical book, like I said, you can choose to edit, criticize. I make a critical edition, translate the whole of Al-Hawi's 30 volume of book, but towards the end, it might not be relevant today, because given the amount of time that has passed,
Mm-hmm.
modern medicine has grown so much. We
Yeah.
know more about the human being, the human anatomy, the human physiology than these people knew back then. Imagine Al-Hawi, for example, what did I say just now? Abu Bakr al-Razi, the date was in the 10th century. Now is the 21st century. So 11th century has
Actually.
passed. So 11 centuries has passed. So that's about more than 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine the growth of knowledge that has since passed. But still, there are ailments, there are sicknesses, there are diseases today
Yeah.
which we haven't been able to cure,
Yeah,
like
correct.
cancer, like heart diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So if we study these works, we can we can see what modern medicine are lacking, and
Mm-hmm.
we can use knowledge from the past, ancient knowledge, to complement some of that.
Yeah.
But the problem is we are not even doing that. We are, this is quite annoying, really, when when we see offer for scholarships, and then you see the classification, the fields that are marked as critical. Medicine is a critical field. Engineering is a critical field. Medicine is critical because we will always need doctors. We will always need. There will always be sick people. There will always be people who have diseases. So
Yes.
we always need doctors. So this
Doctors.
kind of a profession as a doctor is not going to be replaced with AI anytime soon. That
Yes,
is a
correct.
guarantee that we have.
Yeah. Maybe
But
one day we can
talking about
bring.
specializations, some of the diseases that
Yeah.
that can recur. So the problem now is that when we have a mechanized world picture, when we break the world into into abstract form, and then even the human being is being reduced to parts, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
see it as a whole, as a holistic,
Yeah.
uh, as a whole, right?
Mm-hmm.
But these people in the past, they do, and they have lots of tips, and taking care about taking care of your wealth, avoiding the stuff that can make you sick, and then eating in moderation. They practice a holistic kind of medicine, which modern medicine, because of the lack of experimentation, lack of observation, they are severely lacking data in those things, in those areas. And so coming back to what I said, to be this is the annoying thing about this classification of critical areas of expertise today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think people have to really consider, you know, scholarship, the antiquarian studies in academia, to put in, serious, funding into that, to look into, to make sure that there are people who will go to study these works, and see how we can complement modern knowledge.
Yes,
I think that's
correct.
my take for today,
Yeah,
Jamaslina.
very interesting for
Yeah.
today's topic, and inshallah we'll come back for next week for maybe for another book
Inshallah,
to
yeah. Next
discuss.
week we'll be
Inshallah.
talking about a work, a contemporary of Ibn Abi Usaybi, because they lived during the time of the Mamluk, Shihabuddin al-Nuwairi, and we will talk about his book, uh, uh, what is called Nihayatul Arab fi Fununil Adab, which is another encyclopedic work.
Yeah, inshallah. So we'll come back next week for this book. So thank you very
Inshallah.
much, Dr. Husni, for today's discussion, for today's
Pleasure.
topic. Inshallah, we will meet again for next week. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
And thank you very much. That's all from us. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.